Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, everybody. This is Dr. Salah Al Kharbash from SQU. I am happy to host tonight virtual talk on geomology, the dawn of a new science, by Mr. Fabio D'Amico, CEO of the Gulf Institute of Gemology in Oman. Gems have long history in fascinating the human population. Gems became, in many societies, part of their lives controlled from myth, fortune, and even being used as a medication. What is the science behind wearing gemstones? Does really diamond link people together and bring emotional and mental clarity? Are citrine, emerald, and rubies bring you a great luck and fortune even when you have no hope? A part of that, gems are fascinating mix of facts and legend. Nowadays, artificial gems, scams, and fakes became a wide practice in some markets. What is the role of a geologist to protect the customers before they spend their money? It is really a challenging market. Maybe you have some questions to be answered. What is the study of geomology? What is the job of a geomologist? What do you need to be a geomologist? Gems and jewelry market and industry deal with billions of dollars per year. What determines the value of a gemstone? What is the expected growth of a gemstone market over the coming years? Let us hear from our speakers tonight, Mr. Fabio D'Amico, to shed some light on some of these certain and uncertain facts with his long experience in the field of fascinating gemstones. Fabio has more than 20 years experience as a geomologist. He began his career in the gems and jewelry after his graduation from the Faculty of Geology in Rome, followed by a diploma of gemologist from Carlsbad, San Diego. Fabio has been working in many important worldwide gem institutes in Bulgaria, QVC Broadcast, and Geological Institute of America, and as a senior instructor and education manager for Italy and Europe. Currently, Mr. Fabio is the CEO of the Gulf Institute of Gemology in Muscat. That institute that probably represents the center of gems studies within the GCC and the Middle East. And before we call Mr. Fabio to present his talks, I would like to remind you to put your comments and feedbacks or any other inquiries in the comment chats of this YouTube. So please, Mr. Fabio.
Hi, hello everybody. Good evening, and thanks, many thanks, Dr. Salah, for your introduction. Really appreciate it. Before starting our presentations today evening, I'd like to really say thanks to all of you, to GSO for the organization of this event. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy to talk to you about what is my biggest passion, gemology. Let's say that tonight we began a journey into gemology, a journey into my world mainly, but also a journey in a world full of beauty, because when we talk about gemstones, we are talking about beauty, but also we are talking about science, we are talking about research, we are talking about business, we are talking about trading, we are talking about also opportunities. And I'm happy also because I have the chance to talk about the institute I represent, the Gulf Institute of Gemology. We are here, of course, in Oman, in Muscat. And as Dr. Salah said before, I'm very happy because he said that, we represent, of course, inside the jewelry industry, the gemstones industry, we represent the GCC. We officially represent the GCC in the world. So let's start our journey. Let's go deep in our presentation, and let's clear the table of what are the goals I want to reach with you tonight. First of all, as we said in the title, it's an introduction to gemology. So my effort is just to touch all the possible topics within gemology in order to, in order to whet your curiosity, your interest, and maybe one day, maybe next time, we can go deep and we can start talking a different way about the topics we are touching tonight. Okay, then, I think we can start officially. I think it's time to fasten the seatbelt and let's start. So let's ask the first question I want to answer tonight. What is gemology? It's a science or a branch of knowledge? Probably the answer will be in your mind at the end of this presentation. But let me say something. When I start my career, and as Dr. Salah said before, more than 20 years ago, I was young, first of all, and gemology was an exam inside the Department of Economy, and specifically in the Department of Commodities. Can you imagine that? We are talking about minerals, we are talking about crystals, we are talking about chemistry, physics. But 20 years ago, in Italy, of course, I'm talking now about Italy case, gemology was inside the Department of Commodities. Gemology is not yet a science. Gemology is assuming nowadays the face of a real science. But of course, mineralogy and crystallography are the noble sciences where gemology draws data, information, everything. But gemology is not only, let's say, the simple study of gemstones, as gemstones are minerals or crystals. Gemology is really more, much more, because gemology is a part of our life. If we like it or not, gemology is within our life, because we used to buy jewels when we want to celebrate a special event in our life. Imagine simple that we buy jewels when we got married, when we have the born of a son or a daughter. When we have a recurrence of something in our life and we want to celebrate it. So really, gemology is also emotions. It's also make of feelings. And just think of something different now. Let me open this kind of view. When we talk for everything during our day, often we use example and we say shining like a diamond, or green like an emerald, or red like a ruby. So gemology is with us, I want to say, every day, even if we don't realize it. I have a sentence I used to say to my students. Gemology is born with humankind, and gemology will end with humankind. Our ancestor, more than 7,000 years ago, used maybe feathers, bones, teeth as an ornament, as jewels. Today we use diamonds, we use synthetic diamonds, we use rubies, we use synthetic rubies, we use imitation of diamonds and rubies. But the principle, the concept at the base is always the same. We use gemstones and jewels as a, let's say, status symbol. We want to show our importance in the society, and we want, as I said before, to celebrate a specific event in our life. Maybe the husband are not so happy when they have to buy jewels for the wife, but okay, this is the meaning. By definition, gemology is the identification of gem materials, any kind of gem materials. We will see in a few what is the definition of gem materials. It's not only the identification, it's also the development of methods in order to identify materials, gem materials to determine if the gem materials are natural, synthetic, treated, not treated. And one more, gemology is also grading of gem materials. How we can say a value of a diamond, of a ruby, of a jewels, if we don't grade in somehow, and we will see in a few how, the material. And then last, but very important, gemology is also determining the value. First of all, what I used to call the absolute value of gemstones. Second, the value in terms of number, in terms of money. That's why I can say gemology is also finance, it's also trading. That's why I said before, it's also opportunities. Gemology is, as I said, is identifying identifying gemstones. Sorry. What identification process is mainly is to determine the species and varieties of the gemstone. As I mentioned, also is detecting the treatments, is detecting and understand the origin of the material, if it is natural or synthetic. And after I know what kind of material is, after I know the origin, synthetic or natural, I can look for treatments. Because let me give you some definitions. It's the right moment now. When I say synthetics, I mean any kind, a gemstones, a crystal, literally built in the laboratories with the same physical, optical, and chemical characteristic of the natural counterpart. So I can say synthetic diamond because this kind of diamond is made in a lab, is a lab grown, and is exactly the counterpart of the natural one. The only difference is exactly the origin. When I say treatments, I mean any kind of human intervention on the gemstones that can modify the aspect of the gem, can modify, for example, the color, the transparency, and but not the value. I will give you immediately a trade information. When I have treated gem, the value of the gem is exactly the value before the treatment, not after. So I don't have to consider the effect of the treatment. How a gemologist proceed in the identification process? We use different kind of tools. The most important tool is our eyes. We need to look. Let's say that gemology is the best observer, absolutely. Probably most of you can recognize some tools in the image. A diffractive index with a diffractometer, like you can see here. Let me do something so it's better for everybody. Okay, here I can show you the diffractometer, the small tool that we use to determine the refractive index of crystal of a gemstone. And here we are using a polariscope. Polariscope is a simple two Polaroid filters. We can cross them, we can keep them parallel. It depends on what we are doing. And what we do is exactly what we used to do also with the timing section. We are looking for the optic figure. We're looking for the optical axis or one axis coming out from the crystal, but we do it in a macro way. So it's very fascinating. To me, it's very cool. It's very fascinating. And we use this tiny instrument here, tiny tool here. You can see it better here. It's called a conoscope. A very important step in our daily job is also magnification. We need to look inside the stone, the gemstone. Basically, the majority of the treatments are easy. Sorry, let me say are detectable with the magnification. Even somehow determine if the stone is synthetic or natural is detectable with magnification. When I say magnification, I mean the microscope. Simply the microscope. We can use different kind of zoom. We can move. Normally, the gemologist microscope goes from 10 power magnification to 60 power magnification. But it's not enough. maybe when I start my career in gemology, it was enough. Let me say that a very good skilled gemologist could really determine if gemstones was synthetic or natural, or treated or not treated by using the microscope, or some cases also the loop. Now it's no more possible. However, we need then help, because magnification can drive the gemologist until a certain point. After that, we need more tools, more another kind of investigation. Especially in nowadays, because nowadays we are in the age of, I already mentioned, but let me say again, because it's very important, we are in the age of synthetic diamonds. Synthetic diamonds are in the trade, officially or not officially. Many companies worldwide are producing marketing campaign in order to promote synthetic, in order to promote natural, but as an institute, as GIG is always doing every day, our job is to detect and determine if the diamond is natural or synthetic. Just to give you an idea, yesterday, no more than yesterday, no less than yesterday, we have a ring in the lab, and a very beautiful ring with a very nice central stone colored gemstones. If I remember well, it is an emerald, but this is not the main topic. And all around the emerald, there are a lot of tiny diamonds. We used to call them melee. The diamonds are creating the typical structure of a pavé. It's a setting in the gold. The diamonds, all the diamonds, are synthetic. Luckily, our customer came to us before buy the ring. So this is just to give you an idea of the situation we are living in nowadays. It's not a matter of Oman, of GCC, or the Middle East. It's a matter of the entire world. How we can detect these materials over the magnification? We just enter in our analysis, we use in our analysis what we call advanced laboratory testing. What are the advanced laboratory testings? Mainly, we are working with light. How? I took this slide from our seminar about advanced instrumentation. We just really work with light. We start, it depends on the material, but we can use the X-ray, like you can see here. This is an EDXRF. We can use the visible light. We can use the infrared light. We can use ultraviolet light. We can use the technique of fluorescence and phosphorescence imaging. And mainly, let's say a step that we mandatory do every time we have a gemstone in the lab is the micro Raman. We can use the micro Raman, and we're going to use, let's start from the micro Raman. So I will tell you step by step. Micro Raman, of course, we use to determine the mineral phase characterization, but not only, at least, on our gemstones, also in detecting and analyzing the crystal included in our gemstones. So we can determine the identity of the tiny included crystal inside the gemstones. This is very important. As we will see in a few, it's important not only to determine the identity of the gem, but it's also important to determine the origin. In this case, I'm talking about the geographical and the geological origin of the gemstone. Of course, we use micro Raman also to determine in the photoluminescence analysis. We determine also the kind of diamond we have in our lab. Diamonds are divided in two main types: tape 1 and tape 2, and then every type is divided in subcategories. So we can have the type 1A, 2A, 1B, 2B, etc. I don't go deep in this direction because we go far from our main topic. But it's very important because it's the first step to determine if a diamond is treated or not, and mainly if it is synthetic or not. I said synthetic, and here we are. Again, I really stole this image, this slide from our seminar lesson, because often we have to combine two different kinds of analysis. One is the PL, the photoluminescence, and the other one is the fluorescence imaging. Just to give you an idea, once we know the type of diamond, we can go for fluorescence imaging and look for the grow plates inside the diamond. Like we can see in these three images. This is a typical structure of a natural. Those two are typical structure of synthetic HPHD lab grown, and again synthetic CVD lab grown. Moving toward the other advanced instrument, we can meet our FTIR. It's in this case we work with infrared light, and it's useful for many kind of application. Again, we can use it to determine, for example, the type of diamond, but we can use also to determine the kind of filler inside the fracture of an emerald. Emerald is typical fracture filled gemstone. Emerald often came out with a lot of fracture. In order for this fracture to be invisible to our eyes, the typical treatment is to fill the fracture with the specific substances, oil, resin, etc. With the infrared, we can determine if there is a foreign substance inside the fracture and what kind of substance it is. Again, I want also to use this image because as a GIG, we are working very deep and hard with amber, and we can easily also do amber characterization with the infrared using the micro ATR to determine not only what kind of amber we have, but also to determine as a final result the value of the amber. Again, let me now move to our UV Bisneer. Here, with this instrument, advanced instrument, we can detect, we can understand, again, crossing the data with magnification, as we said before, we can determine the origin of sapphire, for example, like in the image. We can say if our sapphire is coming from a magmatic source or metamorphic source, and even more, again, using magnification, using the inclusion inside our sapphire. So not only our eyes at the microscope, but also detecting the inclusion with the microrama, we can understand also the geographical origin. We can say if, in case of magmatic, it's coming from Australia, Thailand, Cambodia, USA, and or in case of metamorphic, we can say if it's coming from Sri Lanka, Kashmir, Myanmar, East Africa, and so on. It's important. My dear friends, it's very important to understand the origin, in this case of the sapphire, because the origin is dramatically affecting the final price. I just set up here a very easy example. If we have a sapphire coming from Cambodia, so from magmatic source, the price can be for a stone smaller than 3 carats, about 1,400 carats. Same kind of size of stones, metamorphic source, Sri Lanka, the price is 2,500 USD per carat. So you can easily see how much is affecting our wallet, the origin of, in this case, of a sapphire. I have another example here because it's an example touching personal me and my team too, because we detect these two beautiful, amazing sapphires. It is a ring. It's called the contrarier ring because we have two stones set, big stones set in one ring and opposite. And I know, I shouldn't say that, but okay. I know that the owner or the previous owner bought the ring from a lady, and old lady for something like 60,000 euro. And as you can see here, he sold both of the sapphires for this amount in 2013 in Christie's auction. So I don't want to read the price, the money he did with this kind of business. But the two sapphires, one is coming from Kashmir, it's about 15 carats, and the other one is coming from Burma, from Mogok, from Myanmar, if you prefer. It is about 16 carats. So our job as a gemologist is very important, not only in scientific environment or context, but also, as I said at the beginning, in a trade context. Again, so talking about geographic origin, now let's move to rubies. So we close the circle talking about the big three, what it's named in the trade as big three: emerald, sapphire, and ruby. In this case, what we use to determine the origin, of course, again, it's a chorus of tests, not only one, is the EDXRF. We use basically the X-ray, and we are going to determine the chemical presence inside the stone, inside the structure of the stone, of the crystal. For example, in this case, I choose a Thailand ruby in the red outline, so you can follow here the red, especially here, etc. And the Mogok ruby, so again, we are in Burma, in Myanmar, with a black outline. What we are looking for when we try to determine the origin of the ruby, for example, we're looking for the presence of some elements, chemical elements, like the gallium here, or the iron, or the chromium, or the titanium. Of course, we expect to have a lot of aluminum because we're talking about corundum and rubies. And again, I want to give you some trade information, just to have an idea. Thailand ruby, 5 carats about, is 2,000 per carat. Here we are talking about USD, always USD. Here we have a Mogok ruby. Okay, it's very big. It's much more bigger than the previous one, but it has been sold for more than 6 millions of USD. Why? Because it's coming from Mogok. Why Mogok ruby as Kashmir sapphire, or let me say also emerald from Colombia, can have this kind of valuation, this kind of value? Because the geographical origin is deeply linked with the quality of the stone, talking about color mainly, talking about transparency, and then it's a matter of human. I mean, as a human, we just take the potential, the beauties, potential, etc., and we transform it in a polished gemstones like this one. One more instrument that I'm very proud to have in GAG is the laser ablation. Laser ablation ICP-MS, or inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometry. It's the only test we can define destructive for the samples we are analyzing. Even if it is a very, very small part, the one that we are going to destroy, let's say that, so small that it's possible to see, even sometimes with the magnification. But in any case, it's very important. An example of how we use the laser ablation is to determine if there is a special treatment on corundum. This kind of treatment is called the beryllium diffusion treatment. And this kind of treatment can create a color in our corundum that can remind us the Patparasha. Patparasha, if you like, is probably one of the most beautiful, of course, gemstones, and is maybe the third inside the corundum species per value. The first one, of course, is ruby. The second one is the sapphire. And then there is the Patparasha. Just to give you an idea, a corundum beryllium diffused can cost more or less 200 USD per carat. A Patparasha like this one here are about 10 carats, can cost easily 1 million of euro. In this case, this is euro, of euro. So a little bit more in USD. This kind of example can give me also the chance to tell you that, as Dr. Salah said at the beginning, we have really a social rule because we really protect the final consumer. Imagine there is a statistic worldwide. This statistics is before 2019, so it's related to 2018, and is about the wealth of a family. Worldwide, we can say that the wealth of the family is for the 75% made of jewels and gemstones. We keep in our house jewels and gemstones. Imagine if after a few years, after 10 years, I discover that my parasha is not the parasha, but is an anonymous corundum beryllium diffused. So it's important, it's really important what we do daily, and much more important also to have, let's say, a final consumer well educated to gemology. What I want to mean? Simply that it's important for the final consumer to claim, to ask, strongly ask when he's buying jewels or a gemstone, to lose gemstones, to ask for a report, for a certificate. Because it's a way to preserve, to save the value, or let's say to save the amount of money that we are spending in that moment. Let's go now in the product knowledge. We talked about how we indicate, how we test, how we analyze gemstones. Now let's talk about gemstones. First of all, I'd like to give you the definition of gemstone. Gemstone is any, and I want to underline, any kind of material that can have, let's say, three main parameters: beauty, rarity, and durability. We want for the gemstones to be beautiful, of course. Be careful, because I'm not talking about what is my concept of beauty. I'm talking about, let's say, an objective concept of beauty. Everybody can say that this stone here is really beautiful, or the entire piece here is really beautiful. By the way, this is a Wycliffe and Arpels necklace and emerald pendant. Again, it's very important also the rarity, because rarity is affecting not only the identity of the material, but also some characteristics of the material. For example, why a Thailand ruby costs less than a Mogok ruby? Because a Mogok ruby is much more rare than Thailand ruby. Durability, we want for a gemstone to stay, let's say, forever, to cross the generation from grandmother, grandfather to grandchildren, and so on. That's why also I told you before that the 35% of the wealth of the family is in jewels and gemstones. Because as a humankind, we like to transmit to, as I said, to our grandchildren and go on, our way to celebrate a special moment, because jewels is always a way to celebrate a special moment. Let's go a little bit deep in what I told you now. What is the beauty? When I say beauty, what I mean exactly? I mean the color, I mean the symmetry. And when I say symmetry, I'm talking about already polished gemstone. In this case, for example, the symmetry is not fully respected, but this is voluntary. It's not a mistake. It's the cutter decide to do that. But imagine if I want to have a shape of rectangular, like this diamond, and it's not following the geometry of the rectangular. The final gemstones will be something not nice, not beautiful. Luster. Luster means the quantity and the quality of light reflected by the surface of the gemstone. Again, this is a property linked to the nature of the gemstones itself. For example, we used to say that diamond has adamantine luster, or opposite. Let's take one of the oldest diamond simulants. glass has a glassy luster. Transparency, again, is another factor that is affecting the beauty of the gemstones, but again, it's linked to the nature of the gemstone. Again, let me give an example so it will be much more clear. For example, from a diamond, I pretend I want for my diamond to be transparent. But if I have a lapis lazuli or if I have a turquoise, I cannot ask to the turquoise to be transparent. Okay, so transparency, don't take it as transparent level, but just as the fully respect of the nature of the gemstone. Rarity, as we already said, rarity can be inside the same species or the same varieties. For example, a beautiful emerald like this one with this kind of bluish green is much more rare than a simple green emerald. But we can also compare two different materials, like, for example, in this case, an emerald and a sphin here. Of course, sphin is much more rare than an emerald, but doesn't have an audience. Not the majority of the people knows not even the existence of a sphin. So let's say that the sphin is a gemstones, very, very rare. Then it's called a collector gemstone. So it's let's say sphin, another kind of materials like sphin can have another kind of trade, the collector trade. Talking about price, of course, sphin, even if it is much more rare than an emerald, cannot have the same quotation of an emerald. Durability, I like to play with castles. Durability is mainly made of hardness, toughness, and stability. The hardness is how well gemstones resist scratches and abrasions. Toughness is how well gemstones resist breaking, chipping, and cracking. We used to say diamond is very hard, correct, but diamonds can break easily. However, easily is something we need to increase as definition, but let's say can break. Absolutely is not diamond the toughness or the toughest gemstones we know. The toughest gemstones we know is jadeite, to give you an idea. Stability. Stability is how well a gemstone resists to the effects of light, heat, and chemicals. If you want, we can go back and say that stability is strictly related to the formation environment of a crystal. When the crystal finds itself in the same condition, it became unstable. So this is more or less the same. But again, we start from a principle in a science and we move to the trade. When in a simple situation, daily situation, a diamond too can be unstable, or an emerald, or a ruby, or whatever. For example, when we expose crystal to the fire of the goldsmith tools, when the goldsmith is melting gold or is giving a gold shape, etc. So it's very important also for a goldsmith to know gemstones. One more example, sorry, before we discuss about this slide. One more example about stability is also the treatments. The principle of the treatments is basically based on stability of the gem species, and in some cases also gem variety. I mentioned many times species, varieties, etc. So let's go a little bit deeper into this direction, because as a gemologist, we used to divide gemstones in group, in gem species, and of course in gem variety. We are very close to the mineralogy division, the mineralogy categories, etc. But in gemology, we have to stay close also to the trade and mainly to the final consumer. So we keep some differences. Just to give you an idea, when we say group, in gemology, we recognize only few groups. One is the garnet, like you can see here. One more is the feldspar group. Inside the group exists the species, In this case, I can do another examples. We mentioned many times emeralds. Emeralds is a variety inside the beryl species. Or again, before I mentioned also ruby and sapphires and paparasha too. Ruby, sapphire, and paparasha are varieties, sorry, inside the species of corundum. Okay, and in our job daily, we have to mention for every single gemstones we have, if there is a group, the species, and the variety. This is not reflecting on the final report or certificate most of the time, but inside, in our, let's say, worksheet, we have to do it. It's very important. One more definition in order to understand better our work, the work of gemology and gemologists. We used to divide the gemstones in two main categories, diamond and colored gemstone, like you can see here. When we say colored gemstone, we mean any gem material other than diamond. Diamond is so important that has a specific, let's say, basket, box where we identify, we grade, we do our job. And we can compare it with the basket or the box of colored gemstone. But we do exactly the same job with the same tools, the same advanced instrumentation, but following different kind of, let's say, let me use this word, rules. Okay, specifically when we are gonna grade the materials. And sorry, one more thing. Gem material. Gem material doesn't mean only ruby, sapphire, or the contour part synthetic, so synthetic ruby, synthetic sapphire, etc. Means also glass, because when I take a piece of glass, I polished it, I give it facets, and I give it a shape, maybe also a cutting style. That piece of glass became a gem material. If I set it then on a jewel, I can call more. I can scream loudly that is a gem material. But of course, the value of the glass is very low, very, very low. Maybe one day we can go deep also about the glass in the history of jewels and jewelry industry. But there is a company nowadays existing for many, many years that is getting a lot of business selling glass, very complicated glass, because the chemical formula is very complicated, not so easy to also to replicate. But if you think at Swarovski is selling mainly glass. Now it's opening also to other kind of materials, gem materials. But in the past, all the famous Swarovski is simple glass, brand, let's say branded glass. Let's try now to put together what we said until now. We said a lot of things. We said how we identify the gemstone. We said that it's very important the mining and mainly the source of the gemstone. So, for example, not only the geographical origin, but mainly also the geological origin. And why? Why it's important? So important because, of course, identification. Remember, when I say identification, I mean natural, synthetic, treated or not treated. Because the identification, the geographical or geological source, or together, are directly affecting the market and also the trend somehow of gemstones. Just to say the same in very easy way, are affecting the final price of the gemstone. Okay. Somehow also the certificate is affecting the price of the gemstones, because in the certificate we call in our job, we don't use in our job the word certificate. We use much more often the word report, because in the report we issue, we say exactly identification if it's possible to do, or if the customer is asking us the geographical and the geological origin. And of course, also, as we see in a few, the grading of our gemstone. Here it's an example of a report. So let's use the correct way of a report. In this case, I choose not very famous gemstone. I just want to play with you and use a garnet. So as you can see here, there is the group garnet. The species in this case is a spessartine. As you see, we don't specify the variety because, as I said also before, not often in the report we specify group, species, or variety like in this case. When I say grade, I mean exactly this part. This part here is about the grading of the material. Because when I mention the weight, when I mention the shape, the pure shape, when I mention the style of the cut, so in particular the style of the facets of the cut, I use this kind of termination, brilliant, modified brilliant, or simply brilliant, or step, or whatever. In our gemstones, for example, we have the upper part, the one we call crown, in modified brilliant, and the lower part, the one we call the pavilion, in step style. Then, of course, the measurements, transparency, as we mentioned before, and the most important factor is also, of course, is the color. In this case, orange. In this part, we are going to mention the treatment, if there is, and also the geographical source in case it's possible to determine, and in its case, of course, the customer is asking for that. For a garnet, we cannot do. It's impossible to do the geographical origin. We said many times, but just to add more information, more data, we said, we saw rubies, the link between rubies and, for example, Mogok, the most important source, already finished, exhausted. We said about sapphire and the Kashmir source. Again, no more sapphires are coming from the ancient mine in Kashmir. However, there is a new mine in the same geographical location, but it's not the historical mine. Now, just to complete the picture, let's mention also emerald, and let's mention the most important geographical source of emerald, this Colombia. This is here at the base of the mountains. Here there are the mines. There are the mines of emerald. One of the most important places is Muso, as you can see here. But said the historical sources, let me add that nowadays there are many new upcoming sources. Specifically, we have to look at East Africa. So we can move from the north going to the south. So moving from Kenya, Tanzania, and going to Mozambique, going to also to Madagascar. All the countries I'm mentioning, all the, let's say, the geographical east side of Africa is really a rich packet of the big three mainly. So just remember, when I say big three, I mean ruby and sapphire and emerald. Just to give you an idea, Madagascar is considered the next source. Let me abuse the termination now. The next source of Colombian quality emerald. It's there. It's a potential. They are not scaling so much at that moment. They keep it for the future. Again, if I stay in Africa and if I remain talking about emerald, we can mention also other countries like Zambia, for example, or Zimbabwe. But please let me mention also countries like Afghanistan and Pakistan, again, talking about emeralds. Why I want to mention these countries? Because in somehow, I want for you to understand the reason why GIG is existing in Oman. If you for a moment imagine the map and you see Oman is right in the middle of East Africa from the side and other countries, packed, rich of gemstones, potential gemstones, like Afghanistan and Pakistan. But let's put aside for a moment the political troubles, etc. So give me the chance to mention also Iraq, Iran, and Sri Lanka, going more to the south and east, India, of course. Here, an example of report. Now we are mentioning Ruby. So let's again finalize what we said until now. In our report, of course, we set up the identity of the material. In order to do that, as we said before, in order to write natural corundum, we need to do all the tests we saw together. So starting from a refractive index, going toward the polariscope and the optic figure, and until the advanced test, before magnification, and then the advanced test, like we said before, micro Raman, and also in order to stop the origin, also, as we said before, we're going to use the X-ray and the EDXRF. In detail, okay. Here it's exactly what I told you before when we talk about the origin opinion. So the source type, we mentioned the classic metamorphic or classic magmatic. Of course, it depends on the stone. In this case, we are talking about ruby, so we move between the classic metamorphic or classic magmatic. And then we go also to the geographic origin, and we used to use this kind of language. First of all, opinion. Second, consistent with Myanmar, or in this case, Mogok. Okay, it's important. I choose this our report because it gives me the chance to talk to you also about one more differentiation. This is not the key of the value of this ruby. It's not Myanmar or Burma or call it whatever you like. It's this one, the key of the value, Mogok, because in Myanmar we have a lot of mines, maybe a lot is too much, but we have many mines. But from only one came out the most beautiful rubies in the history of jewels, from Mogok. So only the rubies coming from Mogok can command the highest value, so highest prices. Okay, again, treatments, he's here. So you can see in this case that our ruby doesn't show indication of heatings because the heat treatment is the typical classical treatment that ruby or sapphire too can have. But of course, it's not the only one. We saw also other kind of treatments before, like the beryllium diffuse, etc. In any case, we have a specific space where we mention the presence or not of the treatments. Let me have a lack of modesty now. I also texted here because I'm very proud of the Gulf Institute of Gemology, of GIG. Because we are among the few laboratories in the world. First of all, we have the knowledge. Second, we are equipped with the technology to detect, to understand the geographical, or let me say in proper way, the geological and the geographical origin of the gemstone. Just please remember that we do this kind of analysis for rubies, sapphire, emerald, some kind of spinels, some kind of jadeite. We can do it also for some kind of, let's say, jade group. We are looking for a way to do it for other kind of gemstones. We are involved in many research projects for other kind of gemstones, but the trade is asking mainly for ruby, sapphire, and emerald. Let's move now in the diamond world. As I told you before, diamond has its own identification and grading environment. When we talk about diamonds, we talk about probably the most fascinating material in gemology we can have. Diamonds has been called in different kind of ages of our life as the king of gemstones. Diamond, in absolute, can have also the highest prices and value or potential considered the other gemstones. When we identify diamonds, at the end of the story, we are going to use exactly the same tools and advanced instrumentation we saw together before. Remember, when I say identification, it doesn't mean only to say diamond or not. It means also to say if it is synthetic or natural, and if it is treated or not. The biggest difference are coming when we are gonna grade the diamond. When we use the famous 4 Cs to determine, first of all, the rarity, and then the value of the diamond, and after that, of course, also the price in terms of money, the value in terms of money. What are the 4 Cs? Clarity, color, and the carat weight. I won't just go through with you between all of the 4 Cs. And let's start from the clarity. Clarity is just a simple scale, and it moves between the highest grade, that is flawless, as you can see here, and the lowest, that is I3. So more or less, we have a lot of grades, and it's made of the presence of the clarity characteristics. What we do is just to determine the presence, and let's say also how many clarity characteristics are in our diamond. Color. And when we say color, we have mainly 2 kinds of different scale. One is the scale of what we call a DZ color, or it's also called the normal scale of color. And the other one, maybe the one that is very amazing, that can always steal my eyes, is the fancy colored diamonds. Remember that diamonds can have basically potentially any kind of color. Diamond can have the same color of emerald, the same color of a ruby, the same color of sapphire, or imagine a stone, imagine a color, potentially diamond can have that color. Very important factor is also the cut. Just for you to have an idea, if you look at these 3 stones, do you remember when I told you the beauty? Okay, you can say that this stone is beautiful. Of course not. But if I do the same question to you, talking about this one, your answer is yes. And I'm sure that all of you, that 100% of you can say, yes, it's beautiful. This is how the cutter can affect the beauty, and of course, again, another level of rarity, and again, the price of the gemstones. Don't imagine that the biggest, so now we are talking about the carat weight as a final C, don't expect that the biggest stones can have the biggest value or price. These stones is very included, and can never, never on this planet can have the same price of this one. It is highest in the highest color possible, D, and the highest clarity grade possible, flawless. Again, just let me give you the chance to see a report of the diamond. The base is always the same, the identity. Diamond, of course, in this case, we are talking about this species, because diamond is a species. Natural, of course, in this case, it's the origin of color. So for diamond, we mentioned in the report the origin of color. And then the 4 Cs, as we said before. Let me close my presentation, just talking about the market, just going inside the market, and talking about also merely the price. I just choose very few examples just to dream with you. One is the Paparasha again, because it's one of the most beautiful gemstones we have in our planet, and maybe it's not so well known like the sister and brother ruby and sapphire. Let me go through the 3 big again. I know we already said prices, etc. But let's touch again some numbers, because it's always important. Because as I told you, gemology is a matter of science, and we saw how we work with the light. It's also a matter of trade. What we do inside gemology is always finalized in the trade. And our audience as a gemologist is always the trade. The trade is made of wholesaler, retailers, and mostly the final consumer. Okay. I don't know if you never heard that a ruby, this one can cost more than 30 millions of USD. I don't know if you can imagine that, or you really knew something like that. Or it is sapphire. Every time I see it, I go mad because it's so beautiful. 2015, 7 millions of USD. Emerald. This is very famous emerald. It's called the Rockefeller Emerald. The name is always remind something to us. 5 millions in 2017. Of course, it's from Colombia. Oh, sorry, I go back. Let me close with 3 diamonds. Since we are close to our national anniversary, I choose a colorless, a red and a green diamond. This is the Cullinan. It's set on the scepter of the British Crown, and the last evaluation is about 357 million of euro. Of course, the evaluation is done considering the 4 Cs. This is another diamond. It's called the Muscat Red. In 2000 something, it has been sold for 8 millions of USD. It's a red, fancy red diamond. This is again, it's another famous diamond, Aurora Green, 5 carat, 2016, 2016, and 16 is also the number of millions sold for this amazing vivid green diamonds. Really, the last, so Docs Salah don't kill me, doesn't kill me, and also Abdul Munaim doesn't kill me. 3 examples of pinks. One is the one I also mentioned in one of our presentation, abstract, etc. Because it's important, because it gives you the idea that diamond value, when we're talking about so exceptional and rare gemstones, it's not affected by any kind of crisis. We are in the middle of health crisis, but a few days ago in Hong Kong, this amazing diamond has been sold for 26.6 million of USD. The buyer is an Hong Kong citizen, apparently. We don't know more about it, about the buyer, but apparently is from Hong Kong. This action was in Hong Kong. Another example, this is famous one, Wisdom Pink Legacy, 50 millions of USD. And another famous one, 71 millions in 2017, in the middle, let's say, of a worldwide economic crisis. Okay, I stop here. I just want to keep as a final image as an institute, our data. So I really hope you enjoyed our presentation, and I really hope I was able to touch your deepest curiosity and interest for the gemstone. Okay, I know I have been very long, so I'm sorry for that.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Fabio, and a very interesting talk. And we had a couple of questions here I have seen in the
ready
comments. Maybe I will start with a question from Samura. She or he is asking about diamond formed at higher temperature and pressure. And but why do we see diamonds with different colors?
Yes, we see that we have diamond with different colors because we can have different causes of colors. For example, the presence of boron can give the blue color. The type 2B diamonds, we mentioned at the beginning when we talk about the FTIR and the microraman, the type 2B diamond can have a boron, and the boron can cause the blue color. Or, for example, if our diamond is exposed, if a rough diamond, colorless rough diamond, is exposed to natural radiation, can take the green color. In fact, the green color is very delicate, and potentially during the cutting process can be removed. Or let me use an expression. Let me say defect. If we have a defect, I don't like this word, but if we have a defect in the crystal structure of diamonds, we can have a series of colors. We can start from brown until pink, red, orange. So probably the most valuable colors in a diamond are due to a defect. This is also very nice to think. There is another category of diamond, color category of diamond I didn't mention. It's gray. Can have also gray diamond. In this case, is the presence of another chemical element, hydrogen. Okay.
Okay. Another question from Aisha and Todd. I think they are interested to see whether there is gemstones in Oman or no, and also to look at what are the valuable gemstones in naturally existing in Oman.
Aisha, when the first time I sit with the ownership of the institute, we saw the potential of Oman, not only for the geographical position, because as I said before, it's in the middle of East Africa and the north, let's say Afghanistan, Pakistan, etc. But it's also because Oman, here in Oman, the trade is not fully developed. So we have the chance to build in the proper way the Omani industry of gemstones and jewels. We can give a lot of opportunities to young people to invest, to be involved in the trade, to become trading operators, to become cutters, to become gemologists. Okay, so I see a great future this way. We need to do a lot of work. We need to really to focus on the luck we have here in Oman. Just to give you an idea, we always are moving. I'm talking about jewelry industry. So I'm not talking about other kind of business or industry. Okay. In this case, I can say that in Oman we have, for example, a lack of logistics. There are not so many couriers that can move, ship valuable goods like jewels and gemstones from Oman to outside and vice versa. Gemstones in Oman, if I understood your question correctly, Aisha, there is some potential, something that has to be unveiled in the future. Yes, yes.
Okay. David is asking what formations in Oman are candidates for exploring diamond. So he can go there.
No, Dave. I think we need to wait. Diamonds are ancillary minerals of two stones, two rocks mill, eclogite and peridotite. I said that not all the deposit of eclogite or peridotite can have diamonds. When I was a student, I went for a field trip in Sardinia, very beautiful island in Italy. It's full of plateau of peridotite, and there are some formation of eclogite too. And we found one tiny, not tiny. When I say tiny, believe me, it was very tiny diamonds. The only one never found in Italy. Of course, it's in the museum. It's there. The presence even of one diamond or two or three, or I don't know, doesn't tell us that there is the chance, the potential to escape or to go ahead and to find more. And let me add one more information because I want to complete my answer. We found, as a humankind, we found diamonds in the kimberlite and lamproite pipe. Okay, and probably it's me, it's my knowledge of Oman, but I don't know the presence of any kimberlite or lamproite pipe. I don't know yet at least.
Okay, very good. Mr. Abdullah, Jordan asking if judite is the toughest mineral, how it can be cut.
Yes, it's the toughest, as I said, and you are telling me now, Abdullah. Normally, the judite is cut as a cabochon. Cabochon is a special shape, as a flat base and a curved dome. There are some samples of judite that also are faceted, yes. But remember, toughness is not directly related to the cutting processes. When we say, basically, when we cut a stone, I'm talking to you about the faceting process. Okay, we basically take care about the hardness of the gemstone. For example, let's move to diamond. It can be much more easy. Diamond is the hardest gemstones we know. It's 10 in the Mohs scale. So how can we facet a diamond? Using another diamond. Okay, because as most toughest, the same material can scratch and itself.
Any further comments or questions from the audience? I probably have one question regarding the limits between gemstones and semi-gemstones. Where are the limits between those two things?
It's a very interesting question. It's historical. Mainly, it's historical. Nowadays, we cannot say that there is a limit anymore. Nowadays, quartz, citrine quartz, amethyst quartz, diamond are gemstones. Of course, there is a big difference in terms of value, rarity, and of course, final price. But the division between precious and semi-precious stones is not actual anymore. Why? Because we want to save the trade also for citrine, amethyst, and other gemstones. So again, the answer is directly linked to the trade, to the market. But in the past, yes, the past has been used many times, this kind of difference, and that's been considered precious, specific gemstones. Of course, diamond, of course, ruby, emerald, sapphire, aquamarine, and lapis lazuli, turquoise. Even if in the past, turquoise and lapis lazuli and much more other gemstones has been called hard gemstones. Not correct definition, of course. We understood that hardness is something not directly related to the capacity of the stones to resist to the breaking, etc.
Okay, yes.
Any
questions? Yeah. Any further questions or comments from the audience? Okay, somebody is asking here, what are the minerals that indicate the presence of diamond or associated with diamond?
We can, Rajay, we can call these minerals indicators minerals, and they are typical minerals that are composing the rock where diamonds fall. We can move from diopside to garnet to some kind of, not all the garnets, of course, pyro mainly. Some kind of spinel, not all the spinel, of course, please take my words in the proper way. And this kind of minerals, we call them indicators. We follow them like a track until we find out the pipe of kimberlite or lamproite. Then we move in another level of prospection. In this second level of prospection, we look for potential presence of diamonds in terms of quantity, but more in terms of quality. Just consider that basically the totality of the pipes active now, we are scaling now, produce 90% or something like 90% of industrial quality of diamonds. We know only one pipe in Botswana that is producing exactly the opposite, the 94% of the gem quality of diamonds. So it's not simple look for indicators. Look for indicators is just really the first step. We know the presence of kimberlite or lamproite. We look for indicators, and then we move to the next level.
Okay, I think we should probably close here. Thank you very much. On the behalf of the GSO, I'd like to thank you very much, Mr. Fabio, for this very interesting talk. And we hope that we all go back and dream to find something out of these talks, but really not diamond, anything. It's okay. And thanks again, and see you next time, inshallah, and see everybody in the next virtual GSO talk.
Thank you very much to all. Thanks again. I hope to see you very soon. Bye-bye.